Hey, it's not Steve. In today's podcast, we talk about the Mike D'Antoni signing. Is this a good or bad thing for the Lakers? Now that Alabama is no longer undefeated, who are the favorites to move on to the title game? After the first tie in the NFL for a while, are ties beneficial or harmful to teams? All this and more in the November 13th show podcast. Podcast starts right now.
The Lakers have become the laughingstock of the NBA. Popovich of San Antonio, Mark Cuban, of course, with Dallas. There's a huge sigh of relief on their part. They're laughing a little bit, and probably the biggest smile on anybody's face out there has to be with Jerry West, who, last I heard, he's still with the Golden State organization. And I believe that Jerry West saw this coming. I really do. I know he left the Lakers quite a while ago, and he got an offer for $20 million from Memphis. I forget the owner's name in Memphis now. He made Jerry West a rich man. Mm-hmm. Jerry West, the GM of the Lakers, he was only getting $2 million a year from Dr. Buss. And Buss just does not believe in really paying his coaches or paying his executives all that well. I mean, don't get me wrong. We'd all love to make $2 million a year, but for what Jerry West meant to that team, you couldn't blame him for leaving. But for West, I believe it was more than just the $20 million to go with Memphis. I believe he saw the handwriting on the wall that, with Jim Buss there, Jerry Buss's son, and Jeannie too, for that matter, although I don't want to lump Jeannie into the same category as Jim. Jerry West had to know that someday Jim was going to be running the club, and Jerry was going to hand it over. And at the end of the day, Jerry West would be nothing more than an outsider, and he knew that. And he took the money. And thank God that Jerry West got his big payday out of basketball, because he certainly deserves it. Yeah. And now Jim Buss is running the team, and Mitch Kupchak is nothing more than a yes man puppet for Jim Buss. And I think Jerry Buss has got to be probably senile by now. It kind of reminds you a little bit of the Steinbrenner situation with the Yankees, but the Steinbrenner situation is a little bit different. I believe that Steinbrenner's kids are much more deserving. They worked harder. Nothing was handed to them. They're not just they're not just spoiled rich kids. They may have a little bit different philosophy than their father, who was a win-at-all-cost kind of guy. They might be a little fiscally more responsible than their dad. However, nothing was just handed to them. They had to work hard for, the old man to hand things over. Jim Buss is a spoiled little rich kid, and it was handed to him on a platter. And he's got an ego that's ruining the Laker franchise, and he's done it again. He did it. You saw this last year. Last year, when they traded Lamar Odom, that's right. They tried to trade Odom in a package deal with Gasol for Chris Paul. Yeah. And thank God the league stepped in and put a kibosh on that deal, because that was just stupid. Pau Gasol and Lamar Odom for Chris Paul was just ridiculous. And the league stepped in and said, no, we're not going to allow that deal. And, Lamar Odom had his feelings hurt when they did that. And so did Gasol. But the difference was Gasol was more mature. Yeah. Gasol, being, from Spain and everything, understands it's more of a business. And Gasol got over it rather quickly. Lamar Odom pouted, and he didn't come to practice. So Jim Buss said, all right, I'm going to show him. And they traded him, and they took nothing for him. He was the sixth man of the year last year. Yep. Now it's 2 years ago now. But at that time, he was the sixth man of the year the previous year. And they just traded him and took a future draft pick for him. So in other words, they got no compensation whatsoever. And Mitch Kupchak had to face the firing squad with the media and say, well, we did it to clear cap space. I mean, that was ridiculous. Cap space for what? For they're not even using. And they hopefully, potentially they could use it a year down the line. But you never know if that's going to pan out. You can ask the New York Knicks. They cleared cap space for 2 years because they were going to get LeBron James, and that never happened. They couldn't get LeBron James. So that was just ridiculous. If you're going to trade Odom, You trade him and you get something for him. That was a joke. And, of course, Lamar Odom went right in the tank after that and was not happy in Dallas. But, that was not a wise basketball decision. If you're going to trade him, listen, we've all get attached to players, and so there's a time for them to go. But you get something in return. And Lamar Odom at that time had tremendous trade value. But Jim Buss said he doesn't want to play here, get rid of him. Athletes are spoiled babies. Lamar Odom would have gotten over it in a couple of days. Give him a couple of days to calm down, he would have been fine. And that was, you could see that this was not a Mitch Kupchak decision. This was Jim Buss acting like a spoiled, petulant little child. And now he's done it again. But this time, first you thought there might be hope when evidently Jerry Buss, got a flash of, a flash of consciousness, and he woke up out of his stupor to realize that Mike Brown was running the team into the ground, ruining everything. Mike Brown should not have been the coach, and he just said, "We're firing him, and we're gonna get a new coach," and that was definitely, something that you thought might humble Jim Buss, and all of a sudden the crowd is chanting, "We want Phil." Yep. Everything points to Phil coming back, and you think Jerry Buss is somehow out of his stupor, and he's going to step in, and he's going to fix the situation. And, they have somewhat of an agreement that, at least an agreement that they're going to talk again on Monday. And before they even, they don't even think about it. They don't even have the decency to let Phil respond. Now, you stop and think about that. You say, well, what do they owe him? Well, let me tell you, when that team was in trouble, when Rudy Tomjanovich was the coach, and Rudy Tomjanovich, 40 games into the season, said, "I quit," and the Lakers were up a tree. And who came to the rescue? Phil Jackson came out of retirement, and he came back to the Lakers to take over for Rudy T. Okay? That act alone by Phil Jackson back then deserved at least some common decency to let Phil have till Monday like you said you were going to do. But when Phil Jackson left 2 years ago after they got swept out of Dallas 4-0, at that point Jim Buss wanted to basically remove any and all evidence that Phil Jackson was ever a part of the organization. He purged every person, connection to Phil Jackson out of the Laker organization. The Lakers clearly, Kobe wanted to have Brian Shaw be the new coach, who was an assistant to Phil Jackson, and someday Brian Shaw will get a head coaching job. He's an assistant in Indiana right now. And B. Shaw, was the player's choice, but no, he didn't want him. He went with Mike Brown because he felt Mike Brown interviewed well. He didn't talk to Kobe. He's a spoiled kid. He's a silver spoon kid, that everything was handed to him, and basically made an $18 million mistake in hiring Mike Brown, and now they got to pay the remaining, I don't know, 11, 12, 13 million dollars on that contract, and Mike Brown is gone. Now, $13 million is lunch money for the Lakers. They got a new TV deal for local television for 20 years for $3 billion for local television, not their national TV money. That's money. The local money, remember now, is not shared with the other teams. That's just for the Lakers. That's not revenue sharing stuff. So therefore, and of course I know there's a salary cap, but still it allows them a lot of leeway. And that's $150 million per year just for local TV. So they've got money to spend. So they have to give Brown a, $12 or $13 million exit package to buy him out. That's just lunch money for them. But, Phil had said he's not going to hold the Lakers up for, $20 million a year, which I say if he did, give it to him. This guy has a resume like nobody else's. And, they don't even give him the decency to get back to him, even though it was Jerry Buss that stepped in to get rid of. And I'm sure there was some of Jerry Buss's friends, tugging on Jerry Buss. Who knows what condition he's in? He's probably a senile old man by now. and saying, hey, the team is going down there 1-4. They lost 8 games in the playoffs. They lost their last 4 straight, at the playoffs last year. All of a sudden, the Lakers are 1-15 or 1-16 in their last 17 ball games, and going back to last year. And Jerry Buss said that's enough, and he fired. He made the order to fire him. But evidently, in the hiring process, it went back to Jim Buss, because I can't believe Jerry Buss would be this stupid. Jerry Buss is the man who understood better than anybody that running a sports team is not like running his real estate business. Running a sports franchise is not like any other business. The players are not employees, and Jerry Buss understood that better than anybody. He gave Magic Johnson a 25-year, $25 million contract to sew him up. And at that time, people thought, wow. And then all of a sudden, Magic saw that how he had gotten screwed years later. Michael Jordan was making millions per year, and Magic was making a lowly $1 million a year. Instead of Jerry Buss holding Magic to that contract that he signed, Magic complained about it, and Jerry said, you're right. And he tore up the deal when he didn't have to. He tore it up, and he gave Magic a new deal, a better deal, okay? Mm-hmm. He understands that players are not employees. They are assets. And your franchise is valued around your assets. And he understood that. Well, somehow, he's forgetting, what's going on now. And so he went on the cheap, and he brought in Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni was run out of New York. I was in New York when Mike D'Antoni was the coach there. It was a joke. The team was a hot mess. People say, well, Carmelo ran him out of town. Well, as soon as he was fired, and, some people say he resigned. Well, he was forced to resign. He didn't want to resign. He was effectively let go, okay, mm-hmm. because he was unwilling to do things their way with Carmelo and everything. So, as soon as they let him go, bang, the team went on a long winning streak.
Yeah.
Jeremy Lin took off, and the team started winning games, and they haven't stopped winning since. And now the Lakers are going to come in, and they're going to, don't forget, Steve Kerr, I don't know about you, but I respect Steve Kerr. Yeah. I respect him a lot, not only as a player, but he was a great NBA executive. And Steve Kerr was tired of the Phoenix Suns getting to the playoffs every year and then getting ousted in the playoffs with this up-and-down basketball. So he brought in Shaquille O'Neal to give them some inside presence, to give them some power on the boards and low-post play, inside play. But it didn't fit, didn't fit D'Antoni's style. So Steve Kerr asked him to change a little bit, to modify his style. D'Antoni was unwilling. He was unwilling to change for Shaquille. He was unwilling to change for Steve Kerr. Bang, he got fired out of Phoenix. What makes anybody think he's going to be any different here? I don't care what his record is, okay? He hasn't proven anything, okay? And now the Lakers have become a joke. They're a joke. And here's what's going to happen to the Lakers, okay? I predict they'll probably win maybe 45 games this year, They'll get into the playoffs barely by the skin of their teeth. They'll get knocked out in the first round. Maybe the second round they'll get knocked out. And that's it, my friend. That's the last you're going to hear of the Lakers. Dwight Howard will leave. He'll be gone. He's not going to stick around. And then next year you're going to get an even older Kobe, okay? Yeah. And Kobe's going to be whatever he is. He'll be 36 or 37. He'll be another year slower, And all of a sudden with no Dwight, an aging Gasol. Don't be surprised if they trade Gasol within the next 30 days, by the way. But nevertheless, they're gonna fall into the abyss. The Lakers will become an irrelevant franchise for probably at least the next 10 years until the 2020s, because this kid Jim Buss doesn't understand how fragile a pro sports franchise can be, especially a basketball team, when you're talking about a 5-man team that's on the court. A little harder for a dynasty to fall down, let's say, in some of the other sports. But in basketball, it doesn't take much. And once you fall from the top, it can be years before you get back up there. Just ask the Boston Celtics. Even the Lakers of the 70s. The Lakers were crap until they finally got the number 1 draft pick. That's how they got the number 1 draft pick. They were horrible. And they got the number 1, and they took Magic Johnson, and that turned thing, and they've been pretty much riding high ever since 1980, okay? But once the team falls into the abyss, you need to get a lot of luck. And don't think there's teams out there that are going to help the Lakers to get back on top either, because nobody wants to help the Lakers. It's a miracle they were able to pull off the Dwight Howard deal. The only reason they pulled off Dwight Howard is he's got 1 year remaining on the contract, and people are afraid to sign him. And I'm telling you, next year, Dwight Howard, you'll see him. I'm thinking about the teams where he could potentially go. Houston is a possibility. The Brooklyn Nets is a possibility because he indicated his desire to go there. Yeah. I would say basketball-wise, it makes sense up in Boston, okay? The Boston Celtics would be ideal for Dwight Howard because Kevin Garnett is aging up there, and Danny Ainge knows how to talk to athletes and motivate athletes. That's a possibility. Don't think San Antonio is not a possibility for Dwight Howard. You know, Tim Duncan is aging, okay? They know how to sell a team down there. Like Popovich knows how to sell a player on coming to a team. You know, so those are the choices where I see he could end up. Even Dallas. I mean, Mark Cuban is a very persuasive guy. Dallas could be. Those are the places. He'll be in one of those places next year. He will not be with the Lakers, and the Lakers are going to fall into the abyss. And the last thing I want to say on this whole thing, you know, is I watch all these, you know, ESPN and the NBA Network and all these guys like Stephen A. Smith and Chris Broussard and some of these other cats talking about Phil Jackson and Mike D'Antoni and their coaching styles and their philosophies on offense and everything like that. And, you know, I hear what they're saying about the triangle offense and also the, you know, the D'Antoni style. Some are saying it's not suited for the Lakers and all that. But here, the thing, they're all missing a big point. None of them are on the money, okay? The thing about Phil Jackson, it's not about the triangle offense with Phil Jackson. Because whether it's a run-and-gun open offense or a triangle offense, whatever, that's just simply X's and O's, okay? That's all that is, okay? Phil Jackson, to me, is a great coach because he's not about X's and O's. X's and O's are, I mean, at that level, you know, yeah, it can make a little bit of a difference, but where Phil really excels, he excels in the area of leading men. That's what he does. That's why they call him the Zen Master, especially when you have, you know, superstars. And the Lakers have, you know, with Kobe and Nash and Dwight Howard and Pau Gasol, the Lakers have a team of stars, okay? And even when he was here before, and they had, you know, Shaquille and Kobe, and when he had Jordan and Pippen, and, you know, and Rodman and Horace Grant, he had all these stars, you know. How do you get them to not only share the ball, but, you know, to get their egos out of the way to work as a single unit? And he does it by bringing the team together, unifying the team for a common goal, being big. It's about something, you know, bigger than yourself. And he sells that to the team. And he makes it a metaphor, basketball as a metaphor for life itself. He really gets that philosophical with the players, where you have five guys on the floor, and it doesn't matter if it's the starting five or with a couple of reserves in there. It doesn't matter. Those five have to be as one, as in life. We have to be as one with each other. And everybody has to be on the same page. And that's what the triangle offense is really all about. You know, the triangle offense is it's somehow complicated in the sense that there's no absolute pattern or way that you must go. Once you get position on the floor, it's up to the player with the ball which way he's going to go or what he's going to do based upon the defense that he sees. And as that player begins to act, all the other four must react. If he goes left, you know, then they have to rotate. And so it's everybody being keyed into each other, trying to anticipate and read what the guy with the ball is going to do and where the ball goes. And if he sees an opportunity to drive as he's driving, the other four players know where they have to go. And it's all about being one, okay? That's what Phil is about, making a team into a team. Okay, the X's and O's stuff, you know, that's secondary, okay? So they can talk about Mike D'Antoni's open style and, you know, if they can't learn the triangle and all that. all that stuff doesn't matter. It's the off-the-court stuff that Phil does. He gives everybody books to read on the plane, okay? He picks out books for guys that what's going to help that person improve his life, and they have to read that book, okay? And they talk about these things, and it brings the team closer together, okay? That's what Phil's about. There's no other coach like that in basketball. And, if I had my pick of any coach in basketball, I'm a Pat Riley guy. I would take Pat Riley, actually, over Phil Jackson. But Phil is the close second to me, and that's because I just believe in Riley's, approach to defense. And Pat Riley is also about, making it more, being a part of something bigger than yourself, and that's an important part of it. D'Antoni's just another basketball coach, man. That's all he is. It's not going to work. They'll get into the playoffs. They'll score some points. And the other thing it reminds me of, Steve, is way back in 1981. Actually, technically it was 82. But in 1981, the coach of the Lakers was Jack McKinney. And they had already won a title in 1980. Or that might have been in 80 they won with Westhead. In 81, I forget, it was either 81 or 82 now. My memory's a little fuzzy on it. But the Lakers already had a coach that believes in up and down basketball like Mike D'Antoni, and that was Paul Westhead. And they had actually won a championship with Paul Westhead. And I think there were 9 games into the season, and Magic Johnson just went to Jerry Buss and said, I want to be traded. Trade me. Because Magic Johnson was not happy with this coaching philosophy, even though they had already won a title with this coach. McKinney got hurt on a bicycle accident. He was riding his bike down a hill in Palos Verdes in L.A., and the bike went out of control, and he went crashing down the hill, and he had some skull fractures and stuff like that. And the assistant coach, Paul Westhead, had to take over the team, and they went and they won a title with him. The next year, Magic didn't want to say fire the guy. He just said trade me. And to Jerry Buss's credit, he realized that, hey, Magic Johnson is going to be here a lot longer than Paul Westhead. And he fired Westhead about 9 games into the season. And he literally took Pat Riley out of the announcer's booth. Pat Riley was not an assistant coach on that team. Pat Riley was the color man on the radio broadcast with Chick Hearn. Okay? And they brought him out of the announcer's booth. At that time, Chick Hearn was the vice president of the Lakers. I think he owned like 2% or maybe 5% of the team. And Chick was the one that said, listen, Pat Riley would make a good coach. And Pat Riley played on that team in the 71-72 year that won 33 in a row with Wilt Chamberlain. And they made Pat Riley the coach, and, of course, the rest is history. But Paul Westhead, his whole thing was, we want to jack up a shot in the first 6 or 7 seconds on the shot clock. His whole thing was to score 130, 140 a night, and just this run and gun, get down the floor and you jack it up, before you get 7 or 8 seconds. And that was his style of play. Magic didn't, and of course Magic likes to run, but even for Magic, he knew that was not the right way to go. Now they got another coach like that. This is Paul Westhead, all over again, 30 years later. And we're going to get another coach that wants to run and gun. That's all he's ever done anywhere he's ever been. And, okay, great. It's going to be great for Steve Nash. But Kobe's going to be very disappointed when they get bumped out of the playoffs. He'll have a lot of fun during the season because Kobe likes D'Antoni. Have a lot of fun. They're going to get bumped out of the playoffs. Kobe's going to be really disappointed when Dwight Howard takes a powder. And then next year, the Lakers become irrelevant. So my final word on it is, go Miami, go Heat, go Pat Riley. Let's see LeBron get his second. And it's just absolutely disgusting what Jim Buss has done. And I hope that one day, I hope that Mitch Kupchak is no longer with the Laker organization and he writes a book and he tells all. Because right now, Mitch Kupchak has been the one that's been falling on the sword for the Buss family. And I'd like to hear, what's been going on. I just can't get down with what they did to Phil Jackson.
Definitely, that's a good perspective. I understand where you're, Mike D'Antoni, he's not really the coach you would say, oh, I trust in him. I know he's going to bring success to this franchise. We haven't seen that in the past from him. he's been inconsistent. He left from Phoenix, he left from New York, exactly for the reasons you mentioned. And now he's coming to the Lakers. Phil Jackson had that almost guaranteed to him, and he was there before. I don't really know what you have to lose if you had him before, and you won a ring with him, and even more. You know, I would have taken Jackson. I don't know where the D'Anthony came from. He just took the lead, and out of nowhere got the contract. I think Jackson is just better. Just play it safe, because for a team like the Lakers, it's not really a good thing to take all that many risks. But I think Dwight might want to leave. You know, it's just too much to have to take in mind, and he did want to go to Brooklyn anyways. So he should have just gone to Brooklyn in the first place, but he chose not to, and we'll see what happens.
Well, it's not that he chose not to.
Well,
he was the Orlando traded him to the Lakers.
I mean, he did agree though to sign with the Lakers as well. So
no, he didn't. No, that's not true.
No?
He refused to agree to sign with the Lakers. The Lakers traded for him knowing that he would not sign with them.
Okay.
So the Lakers took a chance on trading for him. They made the trade. It was a three-way trade with Philadelphia.
Okay.
And they took a chance that if we get him here for one more year, that's all that's left on his contract, that we're going to be able to convince him to stay here and re-sign with us.
Okay.
That's why I say they need to cater to him, because after this year, he's free to go. He did not sign with the Lakers, and he made it clear that he's not going to re-sign. So I give the Lakers credit for taking a chance and trading for the guy when you know it might only be a one-and-done situation.
Yeah.
And where they gave up their top center, they gave up Andrew Bynum, who Bynum only had 1 year remaining on the contract too. But if they wanted to secure Bynum for another, 5 years or 6 years, they could have done it. Bynum would have signed.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to sign Bynum to a long-term deal. So Philadelphia is in the same boat that the Lakers are in. Bynum could, play out this season, and then next year Bynum becomes a free agent. But in Bynum's case, it's not the same as Dwight Howard, because Bynum is going to have trouble getting big money because he's always played hurt. He misses so many games every single year.
Yeah.
Last year was probably one of his most durable seasons, but as you see again this year, he hasn't played a game yet. The season's going to be very short. He's hurt again. He's constantly hurt. Now, if you're a big-time team, do you want to give, top cap money to a guy like that, $19 million a year for a guy that you don't know if you're going to get 30 or 40 games out of in a season? So I don't know what's going to happen with him. But with Dwight Howard, he's going to get a big money deal. And it doesn't matter where he goes in the sense of whether it's the Lakers or Brooklyn or wherever, he's going to get a max deal. He's going to get $19 million a year. That's the max. He'll get it no matter where he goes. Okay? It just depends where he wants to play. Well, Alabama went down this week. Does Alabama have any chance of still getting in the top game?
Yeah, because, according with that new BCS format, I guess, I think going to affect this year, or was it next year? But they only got knocked down to number 4. So, and they're trying to do like the Final Four type of thing, the last 4 teams. So they're down to 4. So I don't think they're completely out, especially if USC beats Notre Dame.
Kansas State was in a little bit of a danger, I guess you can say, this last week, because TCU, they could have tried to come back. They did have a 13-0 deficit in the first half, like in halftime.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I guess they were on the wire somehow, but they managed to win this. So do you think Kansas State deserves to be the best? I think they're ranked number 1 right now, actually.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, their resume, I think, is just as impressive as Oregon. So, yeah, why not? I mean, and I think a lot of people are really rooting against the SEC too. I mean, that's why I think a lot of people are happy Bama lost. Like anybody other than the SEC in the national championship, I think is what people are rooting for. And, if it stands the way it is right now with Oregon and K-State, if that would be the championship, that wouldn't be a bad game because we have K-State opportunistic defense versus, Oregon's fast break offense.
Yeah.
So I think it's an intriguing matchup right now. But, there's still a lot of football left, so a lot can still happen. I mean, KK still has to go through the Big 12 championship, and, Oregon has to go to the Pac-12 championship, so, anything can still happen.
What are your thoughts about ties in NFL?
Well, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
It's fine. I have no problem with it. I know a lot of people say, "Well, play it off and play it." But you know what? You got to remember, I grew up, watching the NFL in the days when they had ties. There was no overtime at all.
Mm-hmm.
So you had lots of ties. Teams. I remember the Rams in 1967 were 11-1-2. That was part of the record. 11-1-2. They had 11 wins, 1 loss, and 2 ties. Everybody had at least one tie. They used to have lots of ties. Then they finally came along and they made a thing where you play an extra 15 minutes, and that pretty much solved, 95% of all ties got resolved. So once in a while, it happens. If I think it's kind of okay. To me, in that instance, a tie is like a win for St. Louis. It was like a win for them. For the 49ers, it could be like a loss. You just have to wait till the end of the season to see how it affects your record. Sometimes that tie can help you and be like a win, and sometimes the tie can hurt you in the standings and be like a loss, especially when you're talking about home field advantage. So I have no problem with it. Now obviously in the playoffs, you can't have ties in the playoffs. You got to resolve it. But 5 quarters is enough to decide. Yeah. No reason to go any further. I'm okay with it. I don't need it to be resolved.
It's the SB Show podcast on SPS Radio on YouTube. It's the SB Show. Thanks for listening, and we are on SPS Radio on YouTube. It's the SB Show.